The air inside the country club ballroom felt thick and sour, the sharp scent of roach spray drifting in through the open windows. Laughter rose from one of the tables near the stage. "I invited that filthy little cockroach myself," a man said, his voice thick with contempt. "After all these years, I guarantee he's still the same stinking, worthless piece of garbage we used to wipe our shoes on." More laughter followed, easy and cruel. "People like him don't change," another added. "Born trash, die trash, that's the natural order. He exists so people like us know we're on top." A low, rhythmic sound began to build outside, growing steadily louder. Glasses rattled on tables. Napkins lifted and floated to the floor. Every head turned toward the windows. A matte black helicopter descended onto the manicured lawn of the country club, its polished rotors catching the last light of the day. Silver letters gleamed along its side. Horizon Digital Systems. A black man in a flawless suit stepped out, moving with quiet, unhurried confidence. He looked toward the group inside and simply smiled. That smile changed everything because they had invited the one man they were certain life had already crushed. They really thought they had him figured out. To understand what that helicopter meant, you have to know where Darius Langston came from. In a small town in Georgia, everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew their place. Darius grew up on the east side in a modest two-bedroom house with peeling paint and a leaking roof. The front porch sagged like it had given up long ago. Window screens were held together with duct tape. His mother, Lorraine Ellis, worked tirelessly, often at several jobs at once. Mornings she scrubbed toilets at a local motel. Evenings she stocked shelves at the grocery store, pressing her fist into the small of her back between aisles. Weekends she folded linens at a nursing home, the air heavy with bleach and the quiet weight of age. She never complained. Not when the electricity was cut and they ate cold beans by candlelight. Not when Darius came home with his shirt torn and his eyes red from holding everything in. Darius wore clothes from church donation bins, pants always too short, shoes whose soles flapped with every step. He learned to walk carefully so the sound wouldn't draw attention in the hallways. But the boy was brilliant. Numbers came to him the way music comes to some people. Effortless, instinctive, alive. His science teacher once told him he had a mind that could change the world. Darius held on to that sentence like a lifeline. School was his escape, but it was also his prison. In high school there was a king, Brock Harlan. His father owned the biggest car dealership for miles around. Brock drove a new truck every year, played starting quarterback, and wore the homecoming crown like it had been made for him. His name carried weight in the hallways like a verdict. Always beside him was Cole Ramsey, not clever enough to lead, but mean enough to follow. Together they made Darius's life a quiet, relentless hell. One year, Darius won the regional science fair. The local paper printed his photo. For one shining day, he felt like he mattered. The following Monday, the article was taped to his locker. Across his face, someone had scrawled in thick black marker, "Still broke, though." Kids pointed, kids laughed. A teacher walked past, glanced at it, and kept moving without a word. Darius peeled the paper off, folded it carefully, slipped it into his backpack, and went to class. At the prom, Darius had saved for months, mowing lawns, washing cars, sweeping the church parking lot. He rented a navy suit, the first truly nice thing he had ever worn. He walked through the gym doors feeling, for once, like he belonged. Brock was waiting by the punch table, red cup in hand. "Nice suit, Darius. You look almost human tonight." Then he poured the entire cup down the front of Darius's jacket. Slow, deliberate. The red liquid soaked through the fabric like a wound spreading. Silence fell, then laughter. Darius stood there, punch dripping from his fingers, staining his rented shoes. He turned and walked out. He did not run. Lorraine found him on the porch an hour later, still in the ruined suit, face wet but silent. She sat beside him, pulled him close, and held him. No words, Sometimes holding on is all you can do. That was the last time Darius Langston cried in that town. Years later, Brock Harlan sat in a cluttered insurance office. His desk was scratched. A dark stain from a leaking ceiling spread across the tiles above. His father's dealership had gone under some time ago. His marriage was hanging by a thread. He was behind on his truck payments. But in his mind, he was still the king. He picked up the phone and called Cole. "I'm putting together the reunion. Find Darius Langston." "Darius? Why?" "Because it'll be like old times. Everybody needs a reunion mascot, right?" Cole laughed nervously. "Don't worry about it," Brock said. "A guy like that is probably bagging groceries somewhere, if he's even still around. People like him don't make it." He never searched Darius's name, never checked any professional network. In Brock Harlan's mind, a black kid who grew up poor stayed poor. That was the only story he was willing to believe. He dropped the invitation in the mail, cheap cardstock, bold, playful lettering, and waited. The country club sat at the edge of town like a monument to people who had peaked in high school. White columns stood proud. Hedges were trimmed to perfection. The parking lot was filled with trucks and modest sedans. Inside, a banner welcomed everyone back. Soft jazz played from rented speakers. The smell of catered barbecue hung in the air. Brock stood near the stage in a sport coat he had bought on clearance days earlier, the tag still tucked inside. He planned to return it soon, but tonight he wanted to look like money, or at least believed he did. Cole stood beside him, nursing a drink, scanning the room. "You think he's actually coming?" Cole asked. Brock grinned. "Oh, he's coming. I made sure of it. Told him the whole class was asking about him, that everybody missed him." He laughed. "Can you imagine? Everybody missed him. That's the funniest thing I've ever written." The room filled with old classmates hugging, old flames avoiding each other's eyes. The DJ played songs from years gone by. People danced badly and loved it anyway. Brock checked his watch, checked the door, checked his watch again. Then he grabbed the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the reunion. We've made it this far. Some of us got rich." He pointed at himself. A few people laughed politely. "Some of us got a little softer around the middle." More laughter. "And some of us, well, we invited one special guest tonight who I think is going to remind all of us just how far we've come compared to him." He winked at Cole, who raised his glass. Then the sound began. Low at first, a distant pulse like a heartbeat in the sky. Thud, thud, thud. The music kept playing, but people stopped talking. Heads tilted. Someone near the window pointed. The pulse grew louder. The chandelier above the buffet trembled. Glasses on the bar began to vibrate and slide across the polished wood. A napkin lifted and drifted to the floor. A white spotlight beam cut through the darkening sky and swept across the rear lawn. The grass flattened in perfect circles. Trees at the edge of the property bent sideways. The thud became a roar. Every single person in the room turned toward the windows. A sleek, matte black helicopter descended through the golden dusk, military-grade and precise, its polished rotors catching the last light of the sun. On its side, silver lettering gleamed like a blade. Horizon Digital Systems. It touched down gently on the lawn. The roar faded to a hum, then silence. The cabin door opened. Darius Langston stepped out in a black suit with no tie. The jacket sat on his shoulders as if it had been born there, every stitch, every line custom. His shoes met the ground without a sound. Behind him, Serena Blake emerged in a black dress, diamond earrings catching the fading helicopter light. She took his arm. They walked toward the entrance, not fast, not slow, like they owned the ground beneath them. Inside, the room froze. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. The DJ's music played on to no one. Brock stood on the stage, microphone still in his hand, mouth open. For several long seconds, the only sound was the helicopter engine winding down. Then Brock blinked, swallowed, and did what Brock Harlan always did. He refused to believe what was right in front of him. He forced a laugh, loud, too loud. It bounced off the walls like a gunshot. Well, well, ladies and gentlemen, Darius Langston, give it up for the man of the hour. He clapped one hand against the mic, the thud echoing. Now, that is an entrance. Got to hand it to you, Darius. Whose helicopter did you borrow? You driving for some sky ride share now? A few nervous laughs scattered through the room. Cole jumped in immediately, walking toward the windows and pointing at the helicopter on the lawn. Nah, I bet his boss let him take it for the night, like a company car, except it flies. You do maintenance on that thing, Darius? Polish the blades or something? The laughter grew a little louder. People wanted to believe the joke. It was easier than the alternative. Darius said nothing. He gave a polite nod, shook a few hands near the entrance, and moved into the room. Serena walked beside him, her jaw tight, eyes scanning every face. She leaned close to his ear. Say the word and I'll end this before dessert. Darius touched her hand gently, a signal she knew well. Not yet. They reached their table, the worst one in the room, right next to the kitchen door, partially blocked by a support column. Every time a server came through, the door swung open and blasted them with heat and noise. Brock had arranged this personally. Darius looked at the table, looked at the kitchen door, pulled out the chair for Serena, and sat down. Malik Brooks appeared within seconds. Darius's best friend from high school, now the head football coach at the local high school. Broad-shouldered, warm smile. He was one of the few people in the room besides Serena who knew exactly who Darius Langston had become. Malik leaned in close, voice low. D, are you sure about this? I can shut this whole thing down in 10 seconds. One phone call. Darius adjusted his cufflinks. Not yet. Let them finish. Finish what? Making fools of themselves? Exactly. Malik shook his head, half smiling, half furious. He squeezed Darius's shoulder and sat at the next table. Close enough to watch, close enough to move. Back on stage, Brock was rolling. The mic was his weapon, and he swung it without mercy. All right, settle down, everybody. Now I want to take a moment to welcome all of our classmates tonight, especially the ones who traveled far to be here. He looked directly at Darius. Darius, buddy, seriously, tell us, how'd you get here tonight? Because I know that helicopter ain't yours. He paused for effect. What'd you do? Win a contest? Scratch off ticket? Did Make-A-Wish start doing reunions now? Laughter, louder this time. Brock fed on it like oxygen. I'm just playing. But for real, let's take a trip down memory lane. Darius, you remember that time in high school when you won the science fair? Front page of the newspaper. Brock clapped mockingly. And you know what? I was proud of him. We all were. For like 5 minutes. Until we realized he was still wearing the same pants he wore the day before. And the day before that. Scattered laughter. Some people shifted uncomfortably. And the prom? Oh man, who remembers the prom? Brock's eyes lit up. Darius showed up in a rented suit looking like a waiter at his own funeral. And I, being the generous friend that I am, gave him a little punch to celebrate. He mimed pouring a drink. The men around Cole howled. Red punch, navy suit. You do the math. Brock wiped a fake tear. Classic, absolute classic. Some people laughed. Others looked at the floor. A woman near the back put her hand over her mouth. Darius sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, face calm, unreadable, like he was watching a movie he had already seen. Serena's knuckles were white around her water glass. Brock wasn't done, but seriously, jokes aside, the real question tonight is this. He pointed the microphone at Darius like a weapon. You show up here in a helicopter with your name on it, or somebody's name on it, and you expect us to believe what exactly? He leaned into the mic. Darius, buddy, we grew up together. I know you. I know where you come from. I know what you are, and a rented helicopter and a nice suit don't change the fact that some people are born to lead, and some people are born to sweep the floors for those who do. Dead silence. Not a single fork moved. Not a single glass clinked. Brock smiled, slow, satisfied, venomous. But hey, welcome back. We saved you a seat by the kitchen. Figured you'd feel right at home. He dropped the mic back in the stand, walked off stage, and high-fived Cole. Darius Langston, billionaire, CEO, the man whose helicopter sat just outside, simply picked up his glass of water, took a sip, and set it back down. Not a tremor, not a flinch. Serena leaned over. How long? Darius looked at her, calm and patient. A little longer. They're not done yet. Brock stepped off that stage like he had just won a championship. Chest out, shoulders back, grinning at every face he passed. Cole met him at the bar with a fresh drink. That was beautiful, man. Just like the old days. Brock took the drink and gulped it down. His eyes kept drifting toward the windows. The helicopter sat on the lawn like a dare. Its silver letters caught the light from inside every few seconds. It bothered him. Not because he believed it was Darius's. No. Brock would sooner believe the earth was flat than accept that a black kid from the east side owned a helicopter. What bothered him was that other people might believe it, that it might steal his spotlight, that Darius, by showing up in a way Brock hadn't expected, had shifted the energy of the room away from him. And Brock could not have that, could not. He pulled Cole and two other former teammates into the hallway near the restrooms. We're doing class awards, Brock said. Cole frowned. That wasn't on the program. It is now. Brock pulled out his phone and typed something. Brent, go find the front desk. They have a printer. I need one certificate printed in the next few minutes. What's it say? Brock turned his phone around. On the screen in bold letters. Best actor for pretending to be somebody. Brent hesitated. Travis laughed nervously. Just do it, Brock snapped. And make it look real. Gold border, fancy font, the whole thing. While they were gone, Lauren Harlan found her husband in the hallway. She had been sitting at their table all night, watching quietly, embarrassed. She grabbed his arm and pulled him aside. Brock, stop. Stop what? This. All of this. The speech, the jokes, whatever you're planning next. Just stop. Brock yanked his arm free. Relax, Lauren. It's just fun. He's used to it. Always has been. It's not fun. It's cruel. And everyone in that room can see it except you. Brock leaned close, his breath sharp with bourbon. You know what's cruel, Lauren? Working long hours selling insurance to people who hate me while my old man's dealership rots in a parking lot. That's cruel. Tonight I get to feel like myself again. So either sit down and smile, or wait in the car. Lauren stared at him, lips pressed thin. She turned and walked back to her seat without another word. Brock straightened his coat and walked back into the ballroom. The certificate was ready. Gold border, fancy font, just as he wanted. He took the stage again. All right, everybody, we've got a special segment tonight. Class awards. We're handing out some honors to our most memorable classmates. He started with a few light ones. Most likely to still be late. Went to a woman who laughed and bowed. Best hair, still going strong. Went to a guy who flexed for the crowd. People clapped, people laughed. Then Brock's voice dropped just slightly. And now, our final award. This one is very special. This one goes to the man who put on the greatest performance of the entire evening. The man who literally flew in on somebody else's helicopter to convince us all that he's somebody. He paused. Let the silence build. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Darius Langston. Come on up, buddy, you earned this. Applause came. Thin, scattered, uncertain. Darius stood, buttoned his jacket and walked to the stage. Each step measured. His face revealed nothing. Brock held out the certificate like a trophy. Best actor for pretending to be somebody. Darius took it, read it, looked at Brock, then at the audience. I appreciate the creativity, Brock. You always put more effort into this kind of thing than your homework. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the room. Brock's smile cracked for half a second. Then he snatched the mic back. Always got a smart mouth, huh? Some things never change. But I guess when you've got nothing else, words are free. Darius returned to his seat and set the certificate on the table. Serena looked at it, then at him. I'm keeping it, he said quietly. A reminder. Time passed, the DJ played, people danced, but the energy had shifted. Conversations grew quieter. Glances kept drifting toward Darius's table and the helicopter on the lawn. People were starting to wonder, and that wondering made Brock drink faster. Cole found Darius at the bar, alone, waiting for water. Cole leaned against the counter, reached into his pocket, pulled out a $20 bill, and dropped it on the bar right in front of Darius. Andrew Jackson's face stared up. Here, man, for the helicopter fuel or bus fare home, whichever one you actually need. Two women nearby gasped. A bartender froze mid-pour. Darius looked at the bill, picked it up, folded it neatly once, twice, and slipped it into his breast pocket. I'll hold on to this. Thank you, Cole. His voice was so calm, it made Cole's hands shake. Cole stepped back, then turned and walked away fast. Like a man who had just poked something he suddenly realized could bite. Later, Brock was drunk. Not sloppy, but mean. The kind of drunk where every word came out sharp and aimed. He found Darius near the terrace doors. Serena had stepped away to the restroom. Darius was alone, looking through the glass at the helicopter on the moonlit lawn. Brock walked up behind him, too close. He grabbed Darius's arm hard, fingers digging into the fabric of that flawless suit. Do you think this changes anything? Darius didn't turn. Let go of my arm, Brock. You think a helicopter and a suit makes you one of us? Brock squeezed harder. His face was red, a vein pulsing at his temple. You were nothing. You are nothing. You will always be nothing. Your mama scrubbed toilets so you could eat, and now you show up here pretending to be somebody. In my town. Darius turned slowly, looked down at Brock's hand on his arm, then up at Brock's face. I said, let go. Cole appeared behind Darius, close enough to block the exit. Serena came around the corner. She saw the grip, saw Cole's position. Her heels clicked faster on the marble floor. Get your hand off my husband, now, or you will hear from my firm before you finish your next drink. Brock laughed. Oh, she speaks. What are you? His lawyer. With what money? You bill by the food stamp. Officer Shane Whitaker. The off-duty cop working security walked over. He looked at Brock's hand on Darius's arm, looked at Darius, looked at Serena, then he turned to Darius. Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down. Serena's eyes widened. He hasn't raised his voice once, not once. The man grabbing him is the problem. Whitaker shrugged. Ma'am, I'm just keeping the peace. Brock released Darius's arm, smirked, and winked at Whitaker. Thanks, Shane. Good man. He patted the officer's shoulder like they were old friends. Because they were. Then Brock walked back toward the stage. He had one more thing to say. The big one. He grabbed the microphone, tapped it twice. The room quieted. Listen up. I want to say something real tonight. Something honest. He looked directly at Darius. Some people in this world are born into rooms like this. And some people, no matter how hard they try, no matter what costume they put on, no matter whose helicopter they borrow, will never belong. He let that land. Darius, you were a charity case in high school. You're a charity case now. The only reason you're in this room is because I invited you. I chose to let you in, and we all know why. He spread his arms wide, so you could see one more time exactly where you stand, which is beneath every single person here. The room was dead silent. Someone near the back was crying. A man at one table stood up and walked out. Darius's hand trembled, just barely. The first visible crack. The first sign that the boy from the east side was still somewhere inside the man in the suit. Serena grabbed his hand and held it tight. Malik shot to his feet, fists clenched, ready. Darius looked at him and shook his head slightly. Not yet. Malik Brooks had been sitting at that table all night with his arms crossed and his jaw locked, watching, waiting. Every insult Brock threw was another weight on his chest. Every laugh from the crowd was another crack in his patience. But Darius had told him to wait. So he waited. Until now. When Brock spoke those final words, something in Malik snapped. Not loud, not violent, just done. He stood up, pushed his chair back slowly, and walked to the AV table where the reunion slideshow had been playing all night. Old prom photos, football games, cafeteria selfies. Nobody had paid much attention. It was background noise. Malik unplugged his phone and connected it to the projector cable. 2 clicks. The slideshow disappeared. The screen went black for a moment. Then it filled with a face that every major business magazine in America had featured in recent years. Darius Langston. On the cover of Forbes. The headline was enormous. Darius Langston, founder and CEO of Horizon Digital Systems. Net worth over $2 billion. Youngest black self-made billionaire in defense technology. Malik's voice was steady. No anger. No drama. Just facts. Y'all have been talking all night about who this man is, so let me show you. He clicked again. Darius shaking hands with the President of the United States in the Oval Office. Both men smiling. The presidential seal, clear behind them. Click. Darius, ringing the opening bell at NASDAQ. Confetti raining down. The Horizon Digital Systems logo glowing on the tower screen in Times Square. Click. The cover of Wired magazine. The Quiet Giant. How Darius Langston built a multi-billion-dollar empire nobody saw coming. Click. Other covers from Bloomberg Businessweek and Black Enterprise. A CNN segment showing Darius presenting a large donation to a coalition of historically black colleges and universities. Click. A ribbon-cutting ceremony for a building with enormous letters across the entrance. The Langston Wing at Atlanta Children's Medical Center. Each image landed like a sledgehammer. The room changed with every click. People covered their mouths. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered on the tile, but nobody looked down. A woman at one table started crying. A man near the bar whispered, "Oh my God," loud enough for everyone to hear. Brock Harlan stood near the stage. His face had gone white, not pink, not flushed, but drained of all color. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Cole had backed up so far, he bumped into a table behind him. Chairs scraped. A water pitcher wobbled and fell. He didn't notice. Malik stepped aside. Darius stood slowly. He buttoned his jacket with one hand and walked to the microphone. His shoes made no sound on the carpet. He looked at the room. Not angry, not smiling, not gloating, just present. I knew what this invitation was the moment I opened it, his voice low and even, every word placed like a stone. I knew what you planned, the seating, the jokes, the awards, all of it. I came anyway. Not for you, Brock. Not for you, Cole. I came for the boy who stood in that hallway with a newspaper article taped to his locker, and the word broke written across his face. I came for him because he deserved to see this. Nobody breathed. That helicopter on the lawn. I didn't borrow it. I didn't rent it. I own it. I own the company whose name is on the side. I built it from nothing. Thousands of employees. Hundreds of millions in government contracts. He looked at Brock. You spent years thinking about me as the kid you poured punch on. I spent those same years building something that matters. I think we both know who stayed stuck. Brock's lips moved. No sound. Darius reached into his breast pocket, pulled out the $20 bill, unfolded it, and held it up between two fingers so the whole room could see. "Cole, you gave me this tonight. Said it was for bus fare." Cole looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. "I told you I would hold on to it, and I will. I'm donating this $20 to the local public school scholarship fund." He set the bill on the podium, "and I'm matching it many times over." The number hung in the air, $2 million. The room erupted. Gasps, hands over mouths. Someone screamed. Then clapping started and spread, growing desperate, like people needed to release the energy tearing through them. Darius did not smile. He did not bow. He did not celebrate. He simply turned, walked back to his table, pulled out Serena's chair, and sat down beside her. She looked at him, eyes glistening. Was it worth it? Darius glanced at the helicopter through the window, then at the certificate on the table. Every second. The applause hadn't even died when Brock moved. He stumbled toward Darius's table, not walking, lurching. His face was a mess of red blotches and sweat. The sport coat was wrinkled and soaked through the back. "Come on, man," his voice cracked. "Come on. It was just jokes. You know me. We grew up together. I didn't mean any of it." "Stop." Darius didn't raise his voice or stand. Just that one word, and Brock froze mid-step like he had hit a wall. "You meant every word. You meant it when you wrote on my locker. You meant it at the prom when you ruined my suit. You meant it tonight when you told a room full of people I was beneath them. So don't tell me it was jokes. We both know what it was." Brock opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He looked around the room for someone, anyone, to back him up. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Every single person who had laughed at his jokes minutes earlier was now studying their shoes or staring at the tablecloth. Cole was pressed against the far wall, arms crossed, head down. He hadn't moved since the Forbes cover appeared on the screen. He looked like a man calculating exactly how much trouble he was in. Then a chair scraped. Lauren Harlan stood up. Slowly, deliberately. She reached down to her left hand and twisted her wedding ring off her finger. It took 3 pulls, like even the ring didn't want to let go. She set it on the table. The tiny clink was the loudest sound in the room. "I told you to stop." Her voice steady but her chin trembling. "I've watched you treat people like this for years. I've made excuses. I've looked away. I'm done." She picked up her purse and walked toward the exit. Her heels clicked on the marble, steady, even, final. Brock watched her go. His hand reached out, half raised like he might call her name, but he didn't. His arm dropped, his shoulders caved forward. For the first time all night, Brock Harlan looked exactly like what he was. A broke, bitter man in a borrowed sport coat standing in a room that no longer wanted him. Near the side door, Officer Shane Whitaker was trying to slip out unnoticed. He had his security badge half unclipped, one foot already angled toward the parking lot. Serena's voice stopped him cold. "Officer Whitaker." He turned, tried to smile. "You witnessed an assault tonight. You saw a man grab my husband's arm hard enough to wrinkle the fabric of his suit. You saw another man block his exit path, and your response was to tell the victim, the man who never raised his voice once, to calm down." Whitaker opened his mouth. "I'm not finished. I have your badge number. I have the name of your precinct. And I have video from at least 6 phones that I can count from where I'm standing showing exactly what happened and exactly what you did, or rather what you chose not to do." Whitaker's face went gray. "Expect a formal complaint, and if I find out you've ever done this before to anyone, I won't stop at a complaint." Whitaker didn't respond. He turned and pushed through the side door. It swung shut behind him with a heavy thud. The room buzzed with a new energy now. Not celebration, but reckoning. People pulled out phones. Thumbs moved fast across screens. Videos were already uploading. Clips of the evening began spreading rapidly across social media, capturing attention far beyond the town. One showed Brock's "You don't belong" speech in full, his face twisted with contempt. Another captured the helicopter landing, the spotlight cutting through the sky, the silver letters, Darius stepping out in that perfect suit. A third showed Malik's slideshow reveal, the Forbes cover filling the screen, and then Darius's speech, his calm, devastating voice, the $20 bill held up, the $2 million pledge. Major news outlets picked up the story. Headlines wrote themselves. Billionaire returns to class reunion. Bullies had no idea who they were humiliating. He arrived by helicopter. They still called him worthless. A local reporter dug deeper. She pulled public records and interviewed former classmates. What she found turned a viral moment into a full scandal. Brock's insurance company had been flagged for discriminatory practices months earlier. Multiple complaints from black clients about claims denied without explanation, and policies canceled after a single late payment. Something that never happened to white clients. 2 co-workers had reported him for racial slurs in the break room. The company had buried every complaint. When the report aired, the company held an emergency press conference. The CEO announced that Brock Harlan had been terminated, effective immediately for violating the company's code of conduct and core values. Brock watched from his living room, alone. Lauren had taken the children to her mother's house. The house was silent except for the television. His insurance license was placed under review. If revoked, he would never sell a policy again. The IRS, tipped off by the scrutiny, opened an audit. They found unreported income, fraudulent claims filed without client authorization, and money skimmed from premiums. Brock wasn't just a bully. He was a thief. Legal consequences came swiftly. Serena filed a civil suit for assault and intentional infliction of emotional distress, backed by 6 video recordings from multiple angles. The local police department filed misdemeanor assault charges. At his arraignment, cameras and protesters gathered with signs reading, "Accountability is not optional." His public defender advised him to plead no contest. With no money for a real attorney, no leverage, and no allies, he stood in the courtroom in a wrinkled button-down. The same man who had once held a microphone, telling a billionaire he was worthless. The sentence: hundreds of hours of community service, mandatory anger management, and racial sensitivity programs, and a multi-year restraining order. The civil suit settled for an undisclosed amount. Soon after, Brock's house went up for sale. Officer Shane Whitaker didn't escape either. Serena's complaint triggered an internal affairs investigation. Additional complaints surfaced from other residents. He was suspended without pay. Cole Ramsey saw the writing on the wall. His real estate firm gave him a choice: get ahead of it or get out. He released a video apology, scripted and staged. The internet tore it apart within hours, remixing it into memes. He deleted it quickly, but the damage was done. Through all of this, Darius Langston said nothing publicly. No interviews, no statements. He let the truth speak for itself. Weeks later, he returned to the town. Not for Brock, not for cameras, but for the kids. He stood in the gymnasium of the local high school, the same gym where Punch had once stained his rented suit, and announced the Darius Langston Scholarship Fund. Millions of dollars open to any student in the area with financial need and a dream bigger than their circumstances. The bleachers were packed with students, teachers, and parents. He didn't speak to the cameras. He spoke to the kids. "I stood in this gym years ago with red punch on my suit and shame on my face. I thought that night would define me forever." He paused. It didn't. And whatever you're going through right now, whatever hallway, whatever locker, whatever name they call you, that won't define you either. He looked across the rows of young faces. The people who try to make you small are almost always terrified of how big you might become. In the front row, an elderly pastor rose slowly, hands shaking, eyes wet. He reached out, and Darius stepped off the stage into his arms. They held each other. The gym went silent, except for the sound of crying. Beside the pastor sat Lorraine Ellis in a simple blue dress and Sunday earrings. She did not stand or speak, but her hand was in her purse, fingers wrapped around a faded science fair ribbon from years ago. The one from the article Brock had once defaced. She held it and smiled. In the months that followed, Darius sat in his corner office on a high floor of Horizon Digital Systems headquarters in downtown Atlanta. Morning light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. The skyline stretched out below. On his desk, next to a framed photo of Serena and a signed letter from the Secretary of Defense, sat one thing that didn't belong: the fake certificate with its gold border and fancy font. Best actor for pretending to be somebody. He kept it propped against his monitor, where he could see it every single morning. Serena walked in with coffee. She set the mug down, glanced at the certificate like she always did, and shook her head. Months later, and you still have that thing? Always will. Why? Darius leaned back in his chair and looked at it. Because every empire was built by someone the world refused to see. The company had expanded. Revenue was up significantly. The team had grown, but Darius didn't measure his success by contracts or revenue alone. He measured it by what happened back in that small Georgia town. The scholarship fund had completed its first cycle, supporting numerous students with full rides. Tuition, books, housing, meals, everything covered. No loans, no debt, no kid eating cold beans by candlelight wondering if college was even possible. One of the recipients was a quiet girl who had grown up just blocks from where Darius used to live, in the same kind of house with peeling paint and a sagging porch. She had won the regional science fair the spring before. Just like Darius had years earlier, nobody taped her article to a locker or wrote across her face. Because this time, there was a fund, a name behind it, a story that made the town pay attention. She was now studying computer science at a prestigious college, making the dean's list. Darius kept her acceptance letter pinned to the corkboard behind his desk, right next to that old reunion invitation, with its cheap cardstock and playful font. Back in the town, Lorraine Ellis no longer cleaned houses. She lived in a comfortable 3-bedroom home with a garden and a porch that didn't sag. Darius had built it for her on a quiet street, the same street where she used to scrub other people's floors on her hands and knees. Every morning she sat on that porch with her coffee and watched the sun rise over the trees. Sometimes the old pastor came by, and they sat together in silence, two souls who had carried a boy through the fire and lived long enough to see him fly. Malik Brooks' football program at the high school now had a new athletic facility, the Langston Fieldhouse, with a full weight room, film room, and proper locker rooms. The first game played there drew the biggest crowd in school history. Malik hung a photo in his office. Him and Darius as teenagers sitting on the bleachers of the old field. Two skinny kids with holes in their shoes and no idea what was coming. Under the photo, a handwritten note from Darius. "We made it, Malik. Both of us." One afternoon, Darius drove to the town alone. No helicopter, no entourage, just him and a rented car. He parked at the high school and walked through the front doors. The hallways smelled the same: floor wax, cafeteria food, and something that might have been hope. He walked past the gym where punch had stained his suit, past the cafeteria where he had been turned away, past the classroom where his science teacher had told him he could change the world. He stopped at his old locker, where a newspaper article had once been taped and defaced with the word "broke." There was now a bronze plaque bolted to the metal: Darius Langston. Proof that where you start is not where you finish. He stood there for a long time. His fingers touched the plaque, tracing the letters of his own name. He smiled. Then he turned, walked back down the hallway, and stepped through the front doors into the warm Georgia sunlight. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of a helicopter. His ride home. This story may be fictional, but that feeling of walking into a room where everyone has already decided you're nothing. That's not fiction. That's reality for far too many people. And most of them don't have a helicopter coming to change the narrative. So maybe, just maybe, be the one who stands up. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who had no idea what you were truly capable of? What happened? And what do you wish you had said? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, give it a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because the next story is even more powerful. Trust me, your circumstances are not your identity. The people who laugh at your starting line will never understand your finish line. Keep building, keep going, and never let someone else's ignorance write your story.